I never expected grief to come with suspicion. But that's exactly what happened. My name is Rachel Monroe, and 3 weeks ago, I buried my father, a man who meant everything to me. He was my compass, my foundation, the one person who could look me in the eyes and instantly know if I was okay. Losing him left a hole in my life I couldn't begin to fill. But as it turns out, his death wasn't the only thing I was mourning. It started the morning after the funeral, when the lawyer, Mr. Halverson, called to schedule the will reading. My older sister, Vanessa, insisted we meet at the family house. I remember her exact words. "It's what Dad would have wanted." Her voice was hollow when she said it, like she was reading from a script she didn't believe in. The house felt colder than usual when I arrived. Not in temperature, but in energy. As I stepped through the front door, the scent of old wood and lavender potpourri wrapped around me like a memory. I paused for a moment, my fingers brushing the mahogany table in the foyer. It still held the indentation from the time Dad accidentally slammed his toolbox into it. Vanessa stood by the fireplace, arms folded, lips painted in a deep red that felt too bold for the occasion. "You're late," she said without turning. I checked my watch. "It's 10:01. She turned to me then, offering a smile that didn't touch her eyes. "Guess I'm just eager to move on." The room fell silent until Mr. Halverson arrived, briefcase in hand. He looked older than I remembered, his salt and pepper hair now leaning more toward salt, his eyes weighed down by some invisible burden. "Thank you both for coming," he said, voice shaking slightly. We sat. I clasped my hands tightly in my lap. Vanessa reclined like she owned the place. Mr. Halverson opened the briefcase slowly, pulling out a single document encased in a plastic sleeve. "This is the last will and testament of Mr. Charles Monroe, dated June 2nd of this year." June 2nd. My chest tightened. "Wait," I interrupted. "Dad had a stroke on June 5th. Are you sure about that date?" Mr. Halverson blinked. "Yes, that's what the document says." I glanced at Vanessa. Her face was a mask of serenity. He began reading the contents. I didn't hear most of it, just white noise until the line that shattered everything. "To my daughter Vanessa Monroe, I leave the Monroe family home. All financial assets and estate holdings." I sat upright. "What?" Mr. Halverson continued reading. My name was nowhere in the document. I looked at my sister. She kept her eyes on the lawyer, expression unmoving. "This has to be a mistake," I said, standing. He told me that everything was going to be split equally." Mr. Halverson looked visibly uncomfortable. "Rachel, I understand this is upsetting, but this document is signed, dated, and notarized." "Let me see it," I demanded. Vanessa's voice cut in, low and cold. "Are you really going to make this harder than it needs to be?" I turned the document over in my hands. The signature was there, Charles Monroe. But it didn't look right. The C looped higher than usual. The M was too neat. Dad's hands had trembled slightly for years. But this was perfect. Too perfect. I felt something twist in my stomach. Vanessa stood. "Dad and I talked a lot toward the end. Maybe you just didn't know everything." "That's not true," I said through clenched teeth. "I called him every day. I was there." She shrugged. "People change their minds, Rachel." I left the room in a daze, the sound of the door shutting behind me echoing in my ears. The next few days were a blur of confusion and gnawing doubt. I replayed conversations with Dad in my mind. The time he said, "You and Vanessa may be different, but I trust you both to handle things maturely." The way he always asked me to manage the bills. The moment in the hospital when he held my hand and whispered, "Keep an eye on your sister." At the time, I thought he was just being sentimental. Now, those words felt like a warning. I went to my apartment and pulled out the birthday card he gave me in April. His handwriting, shaky but familiar, flowed across the page in ink. I compared it to the signature on the will. The loops didn't match. The pressure points were off. Something was wrong. I called Mr. Halverson 2 days later. "I need a copy of the notarized page. I'm having it looked at." There was a pause on the line. "Rachel, I really think you should let this go. Your father's affairs were complicated near the end. What does that mean? He sighed. Let's just say there were pressures. Vanessa visited him often. She was very persuasive. I felt the ground shift beneath me. What are you saying? I'm not saying anything definitive, he replied quickly. But I will send you the notarized copy. The call ended, but my heartbeat didn't slow. I visited the hospital records office the next day. After some back and forth and proof of relation, I got access to Dad's patient file. He was in no condition to write or sign anything after June 1st. His motor control had already begun deteriorating due to a mini-stroke prior to the big one on June 5th. So, how could he have signed a legal document on June 2nd? I looked again at the notary's name, Sylvia Jackson. I searched her online. Nothing came up. No LinkedIn. No state license. No notary registry. A chill ran down my spine. That night, I returned to the family house while Vanessa was out. I still had my old key. The place was dark, quiet, almost mournful. I made my way to Dad's study, his sanctuary. I opened his desk drawer and rummaged through the files. Receipts. Old checks. A thick folder labeled estate planning. Inside it were drafts of wills, one from 3 years ago, another from last December. Both listed Rachel and Vanessa Monroe as equal beneficiaries. One even had a sticky note in Dad's handwriting that said, "Finalize this by summer." My heart pounded. I dug deeper. At the very bottom of the drawer, I found a sealed envelope addressed to me. My name in Dad's distinct, crooked scrawl. I opened it with trembling fingers. Rachel, if you're reading this, it means things didn't go as I hoped. I've had concerns about Vanessa's behavior lately. Please know that I trusted you. The right thing is not always the easy thing. Protect what matters. Tears streamed down my cheeks. He knew. I confronted Vanessa the next morning. She was sitting on the porch sipping coffee like nothing had happened. Who is Sylvia Jackson? I asked. She didn't blink. The notary. She doesn't exist. I searched. A pause. Then she smiled faintly. Maybe you're just not looking in the right places. I found the old wills. I found the letter. She stood, her face unreadable. You always had to be the favorite. Dad gave you everything. Now it's my turn. You forged his signature. That's a felony. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. You can't prove it. I don't need to. Not yet. And then, for the first time, Vanessa's composure cracked. Her jaw clenched. Her eyes narrowed. You think you're going to take this from me? After everything? I'm not taking anything. I'm protecting Dad. That night, I sat in my apartment, Dad's letter clutched in one hand, and a copy of the forged will in the other. My phone buzzed, an email from a forensic handwriting analyst I'd contacted. Subject line, preliminary review, urgent findings. I opened it. Rachel, based on your father's samples and the document you sent, I can say with 90% certainty that the signature was forged. We'll need a full report, but this is serious. My hands shook. My sister didn't just manipulate grief. She tried to rewrite a man's final wishes. And now I was going to stop her. It's strange how quickly love can turn into fear. I once looked at Vanessa and saw my sister, the girl who used to braid my hair, sneak extra cookies under the table and hold my hand during thunderstorms. Now I saw someone I didn't recognize. Someone who could look our father in the eyes while lying to his soul. I didn't sleep that night. My mind spun in relentless circles, replaying every conversation, every sideways glance, every manipulative smirk Vanessa had flashed since the funeral. It all felt staged, rehearsed, a performance she'd been preparing long before Dad ever passed away. By morning, I had a plan. I scheduled a formal consultation with a handwriting expert. His name was Dr. Bennett Stone, a retired FBI document examiner. When I walked into his small Boston office, the air was dry, and the walls were lined with case photos. It smelled like aged paper and ink, oddly comforting. Dr. Stone was in his early 60s, sharp-eyed with a quiet intensity. He sat across from me, carefully spreading out the samples. Dad's birthday card, his old journals, a signed lease from 2 years ago, And then the will. This signature, he said after 15 minutes of silence, is not consistent with the others. The pressure is off. There are no hesitation marks, no tremors. It's smooth, too smooth. Whoever did this had a steady hand. Your father clearly did not. So, it's fake. I whispered. Dr. Stone folded his hands. I cannot declare it legally forged without a full analysis, but based on these samples?
Yes.
Highly probable. He handed me a printed statement, preliminary signature assessment, probable forgery. My fingers tightened around the paper. Can this hold up in court? I asked. If paired with a full report and supporting documentation, yes. But be prepared for a fight. I was ready. Back at my apartment, I opened my laptop and started compiling everything. I labeled folders, handwriting evidence, medical timeline, estate planning drafts, Vanessa's motive. It felt like I was building a case brick by brick, determined to protect a man who wasn't even alive to defend himself. But Vanessa wasn't going to back down easily. That night, I received a call from an unknown number. Rachel Monroe? A gruff male voice asked. Yes, I represent Ms. Vanessa Monroe. We've been made aware of your accusations. Cease any further attempts to defame or challenge the will, or we will pursue legal consequences. I paused. So, you do know it's being challenged? Silence. I'm hanging up now, I said. Tell your client I have evidence.
Click.
The next morning, I went to the probate court and filed a petition to contest the will. The clerk glanced at the paperwork, then at me. That your sister? She asked casually, pointing to Vanessa's name. I nodded. She's something else, she muttered under her breath. Good luck. That was the first hint I got that Vanessa had made more enemies than I thought. Within 2 days, the court scheduled a hearing. I notified Dr. Stone and emailed Mr. Halverson. The silence from both Vanessa and her attorney was eerie. Too calm. But then strange things started happening. My mailbox was stuffed with junk, over 50 catalog subscriptions I never signed up for. My credit card was declined at a grocery store. Turns out someone had reported it stolen. And one morning, I stepped outside to find my car tire slashed. I called the police. They took a report, but didn't seem interested. No witnesses, no cameras, the officer said. Could be random.
Could be.
But I knew it wasn't. That night, I looked through the peephole 3 times before sleeping. By the weekend, I couldn't ignore the signs. Vanessa wasn't just panicking, she was retaliating. I needed help. So I did something I hadn't done in years. I called my Aunt Eleanor. She was my dad's sister, lived in Rhode Island, and had always been a straight-talking, no-nonsense woman. Growing up, she used to bring me books and warn me about people who smiled too wide. After Dad's death, she and Vanessa had a falling out, but I never knew why. When she answered, her voice cracked. Rachel? I was hoping you'd call. I told her everything. The will, the forgery, the threats. Silence stretched on the line. Then she said, Your father came to me a few months before he died. He said he was worried about Vanessa's spending, her friends, her secrets. He asked if I'd help manage the estate if something happened to him. My breath caught. Did he give you anything? She hesitated. He sent me a backup draft of his will. I kept it. I nearly cried. I'll overnight it to you, she said. But be careful. Vanessa's always been clever, but when she's cornered, she becomes dangerous. The package arrived the next morning. Inside was a manila envelope with a dated draft, May 29th. It included both our names, split assets, and a handwritten note from Dad at the bottom. Pending final notary next week.
Proof.
I scanned everything and sent it to my lawyer, Claire Hastings. Claire was sharp, young, and unshakably calm. Exactly who I needed.
This is good, she said.
If the judge sees this side by side with the forged version, plus the handwriting report, we have a real case. Will Vanessa go to jail? I asked. She looked up. If the court determines it's fraud and forgery, yes. This could become criminal. I stared out the window, watching the trees sway in the wind. For a brief moment, I felt sorry for Vanessa. Somewhere along the way, We lost each other. Maybe we never really had each other to begin with. 3 days before the hearing, I received an email. Subject: Let's talk. From Vanessa Monroe. Rachel, I don't know what you think you're doing, but it's not going to work. You're tearing the family apart. Dad didn't trust you. He told me so. He wanted someone strong to manage everything. I did what I had to do.
Drop this.
You're not ready for the fallout. Vanessa. I read it 5 times. Then I hit reply. Vanessa, I have the real will. I have the handwriting report. I have the notarization logs. And I have nothing to lose. You should start thinking about a defense. Rachel. I never got a reply. The night before the hearing, I had a dream. Dad and I were sitting in the backyard under the old maple tree. He was smiling, younger than he had looked in years, and holding 2 mugs of tea. You always knew the truth, he said, handing me a mug. You just needed to believe it. I woke up crying. I was ready. The courtroom was small, but filled with tension. Vanessa sat across from me in a navy suit, her lawyer at her side. She looked polished, but her hands kept fidgeting with her ring, Dad's wedding band, which she'd taken from his drawer. Claire laid out our case piece by piece. Dr. Stone's analysis, Aunt Eleanor's draft, the timeline of Dad's illness, the missing notary, even the signature inconsistencies. Vanessa's lawyer objected repeatedly, but the judge, an older woman with steel-gray hair and eyes like ice, let most of it through. When I took the stand, my voice didn't shake. My father trusted me, I said, holding the letter. He didn't get to say goodbye the way he wanted. But I'm here to make sure his final words aren't erased. Vanessa refused to testify. She just sat there, arms crossed, jaw clenched, refusing to meet my eyes. The judge called for a recess. Claire turned to me. I think we've got this. What happens if the judge rules in our favor? Probate gets reversed. Criminal charges are possible, but that depends on what else we find. I nodded. Vanessa passed by on her way out. She didn't speak, but her stare, it wasn't hate. It was fear. I returned home after the hearing and collapsed onto my couch. Every muscle in my body ached, and my head throbbed from the pressure of keeping my composure all day. But the silence that greeted me was oddly peaceful. No phone calls. No threats. No Vanessa. But deep down, I knew it wasn't over. I checked my inbox. 1 new email. No subject line. No sender name. Just a file attachment labeled read_me_Vanessa_audio. MP4. My stomach dropped. I hesitated, hovered my finger over the play button, then clicked. The audio began with muffled sounds. A shaky voice, Vanessa's. Look, I don't care what it takes. I need you to make it look real. The signature has to match. I'll send you a picture of an old lease agreement. Just copy that. Then silence. The faint clinking of glass. If she finds out, I'm screwed. Just make it happen, okay? I'll wire the rest of the payment once I have the will in hand. I sat frozen. It wasn't just suspicion anymore. It wasn't just inference or evidence or probability. It was confession. Someone had recorded Vanessa arranging the forgery. Someone had kept that recording. And now they wanted me to have it. But who? I checked the email again. No IP address, no sign-off. Completely anonymous. My phone buzzed. Blocked number. I answered. Did you get it? A distorted voice asked. That's only part 1. Who is this? Someone who wants justice, they replied. Check your doorstep. The line went dead. I rushed to my door, opened it, and there, on the mat, was a small black envelope. No writing. No markings. Inside was a USB drive. I plugged it into my laptop with trembling fingers. A folder popped open. Photos_truth_2025. My breath hitched. Image after image filled the screen. Vanessa at a bar handing over what looked like a check. Vanessa in a bank lobby with a man I didn't recognize. Tall, grizzled, leather jacket, sunglasses indoors. Then a scan of the original forged will, time-stamped before the official filing date. My hands shook. Whoever this was, they weren't just exposing Vanessa. They had been watching her for a long time. And now they had chosen me. I called Claire immediately. "You need to see this," I said, forwarding everything. 20 minutes later, we were on a secure video call. "Jesus," she muttered. "Rachel, this is enough to take this to the district attorney. Do you think this anonymous source is a real?" Claire's silent for a moment. "Real?
Yes.
But safe? I'm not sure. This feels bigger than a simple estate fraud case. What if Vanessa was working with someone else?" Claire raised her eyebrows. "That guy in the sunglasses, we need to ID him." The next day, Claire pulled some strings. Her contact in private security, Jake Mulroney, an ex-military investigator turned legal consultant, agreed to analyze the footage. He called us after reviewing everything. The man in the bank photo? Name's Paul Drenner. Known fraud artist. Specialized in forged estate documents and impersonation scams. Been off the radar for 2 years. "So Vanessa hired a criminal to forge our father's will?" Jake nodded. "Looks like it. This guy's work is usually invisible, but someone tailed him." "Do we know who sent the video?" "No idea. But whoever it is, they know both of them. And they're protecting you." That night, I sat on my bed, staring at my dad's old watch ticking softly on the nightstand. I couldn't sleep. So I scrolled through my dad's old voicemails, desperate for anything I'd missed. And then I found one. A saved voicemail from 2 weeks before he died. "Hey, Rach. I've been thinking about everything. I know Vanessa's been coming around more, but something doesn't feel right. If anything ever happens to me, if something doesn't make sense, talk to Eleanor. She'll know what to do. I trust you. I love you." My vision blurred with tears. He knew. He tried to warn me. He didn't trust Vanessa. He trusted me. I met Eleanor for lunch the next day at a quiet Italian cafe in Providence. She looked older than I remembered, her hair streaked with silver, but her eyes were just as sharp. "You heard the voicemail," she said softly. I nodded. "He told me, Rachel. He knew something was off. Vanessa was digging, asking about insurance policies, property documents, trying to get him to change the will faster. Why didn't he just cut her out? He didn't want to cause a war between you. He hoped she'd change." Eleanor slid an envelope toward me. "What's this?" "His last handwritten letter. He gave it to me 2 days before he passed. Said to give it to you only if things went wrong." I opened the envelope with trembling fingers. "Rachel, if you're reading this, I'm sorry. I didn't do enough to protect you. Vanessa, she's not who you think. There's more about your mother, about the trust, about the people she's involved with. You'll find answers at the storage unit in Dorchester. Box number 11. Use your birthday for the lock. Don't trust anyone until you see it for yourself. Love always."
Dad.
My heart pounded. There was more. The storage unit was old and dusty. I found box number 11 stacked between faded furniture and brittle books. I entered the code, my birthday, and popped the lock. Inside were 4 things. 1. A leather journal. 2. A burner phone. 3. A manila envelope labeled Mother. 4. A flash drive. I sat in the dust and opened the journal. Page after page detailed Dad's suspicions. Strange phone calls. Bank withdrawals he didn't authorize. Vanessa lying about where she'd been. And then a note that chilled me. Vanessa found out the truth. About the first will. About her real mother. I blinked. Her real mother? I grabbed the envelope labeled Mother and tore it open. Inside were adoption papers. Vanessa wasn't biologically Dad's daughter. She'd been adopted when she was 6. Her real mother had been one of Dad's ex-girlfriends, a woman who'd struggled with addiction. Dad had taken her in out of compassion. He'd never told us. He never even told her. But she had found out. And now, everything made sense. I drove back in silence. All these years, Vanessa thought she was the rightful heir. That she deserved everything, because she was the favorite. But the truth? She was never in the will, because she wasn't supposed to be. Dad didn't trust her, but he loved her enough to keep the lie going. And when she found out, she retaliated. That night I got another email. Subject: Final proof. He was never her father. She knew. She hated you for being the real daughter. She wanted everything you had, your name, your life, your legacy. She's already planning to run. You have 2 days before she disappears. Attached was a PDF of a plane ticket booked in Vanessa's name, one way to Belize, under a fake identity. Departure, Saturday at 10:45 p.m.
Today was Thursday.
She was going to vanish, and I had 48 hours to stop her. Friday morning felt like the calm before a storm. I couldn't eat. I couldn't think straight. My eyes were swollen from lack of sleep, and my brain throbbed from piecing together the puzzle my father left behind. But one thing was clear. Vanessa wasn't just a manipulator. She was running away with a stolen legacy. Claire and I met at her office at 10 a.m. sharp. The USB, the audio files, the adoption papers, the will, everything was laid out on her desk like evidence in a courtroom drama. "She's scared," Claire said, tapping the flight ticket. "And scared people are unpredictable." "She's dangerous," I replied, clenching my fists. "And she's not getting away with it." Claire looked me in the eyes. "You ready to go public?" I hesitated. This wasn't just about confronting Vanessa. This meant exposing the truth to the world, destroying whatever image my sister had built for herself. And maybe destroying the last thread of our family name. "Yes," I said finally. "Let's take her down." By noon, Claire had contacted the district attorney and forwarded all the evidence. "Based on what we've received," the DA's voice crackled through the speakerphone, "we're opening a criminal investigation into Vanessa Harper. Forgery, fraud, attempted theft of inheritance, and conspiracy." "But she's about to flee the country," Claire reminded him. "I'll issue an emergency hold on her passport and alert airport security. But someone will need to confront her before she gets any further." That someone was me. I found her at a rented loft on the edge of Boston, near the harbor. I rang the doorbell 3 times before she opened the door, mascara smudged, hair wild, eyes glassy. "Oh," she muttered. "You." I walked in without asking. The place smelled like wine and desperation. Suitcases lined a hallway. Her laptop was open on the kitchen table, multiple tabs showing travel sites and offshore accounts. She didn't even try to hide it. "You're leaving," I said coldly. She turned, arms crossed. "So what if I am? I need a break." With a fake passport? I pulled out the printed flight itinerary and slapped it on the table. Her face paled. "Where did you get that? You're not the only one with secrets." Her voice turned icy. "You have no idea what you're walking into." "Oh, I think I do," I said, pulling out the USB drive. "I heard everything, Vanessa. You hired a criminal to forge Dad's will. You tried to erase me from the legacy. But guess what? You can't delete the truth." She went quiet for a long moment. Then she laughed. Bitter. Hollow. "You think you're the righteous one?" she said. "You think Dad loved you more because of some papers? You don't know what it's like to live as the afterthought. The backup daughter." "You were never an afterthought," I snapped. "You were protected. He gave you a home, a life." "Because he felt guilty," she screamed. "Guilty for abandoning my mother. Guilty for pretending I was his. He couldn't even look at me without remembering what he'd done." Tears streamed down her face. But my rage swallowed any sympathy. "He still loved you," I said. "But you betrayed him." She slumped into a chair. "I didn't mean to take it all," she whispered. "Just enough to start over. I was drowning, Rachel. I had nothing left. You had me," I said. "But you chose lies." I opened my bag and dropped the flash drive, the adoption papers, and the journal on the table. "These go public in an hour unless you come with me now." Her face went white.
"No."
"You can't." "I can and I will. I'll say you faked all of this. Then explain the audio, the time-stamped emails, the money transfers, the security footage. You're done, Vanessa." Her hand shook as she reached for her wine glass. But halfway up, she stopped. She looked me in the eyes. And for the first time, I saw her break. Her voice was barely a whisper. "I didn't want to be her." "Who?"
My mother, she said.
Addict. Liar.
Thief.
I became her.
I didn't know what to say.
I hated you for being the daughter he wanted. And I hated myself for not being enough. She looked down at her trembling hands. Maybe I deserve to pay for what I've done. I said nothing, because in that moment, I knew the war was over. Claire and I escorted her to the DA's office that evening. She turned herself in. They booked her without handcuffs. Out of courtesy. But her mugshot, that was the real sentence. No more lies. No more masks. No more escape. Later that night, I stood outside Dad's grave. The wind was soft. The stars were beginning to blink through the night sky. I found the truth, I whispered. And I'm sorry it took me this long. I placed the leather journal on the headstone. She tried to rewrite your legacy, but you still won. I turned to leave, tears burning my eyes, but also peace. Because the confrontation was over. But the healing had just begun. The days after Vanessa's arrest passed in a haze of news headlines, phone calls, and court summons. Boston woman arrested for forging father's will. Inheritance fraud scandal rocks Harper family. Adopted sister faces felony charges in estate theft case. I saw it all. Her name plastered across screens, her story dissected by strangers who didn't know a thing about the pain behind it. And I should have felt satisfied. But I didn't. Instead, I felt hollow. Not because she didn't deserve it.
She did.
But because a part of me had still hoped we could be sisters again once. Claire and I worked together to restore Dad's original will. It took weeks of paperwork, verification, and legal hurdles. But in the end, justice prevailed. The court ruled the forged document invalid, and everything reverted back to my father's last legitimate instructions. The house, the accounts, the land, all of it returned under my name, as he intended. But the victory was bittersweet, because while I won back my inheritance, I had lost my family. Vanessa remained in custody during the trial. She pleaded guilty. Claire said it was the smartest thing she could have done. Taking responsibility shaved years off her sentence. Instead of a lengthy prison term, she was given a 5-year suspended sentence, community service, and mandatory psychological counseling. The court acknowledged her emotional trauma but didn't excuse her crimes. And neither could I. One morning, a few weeks later, I received a letter in the mail. The handwriting was unmistakably hers. I almost didn't open it. I left it sitting on my desk for hours, staring at it like it was a ghost. But eventually I picked it up.
And read.
Rachel, they gave me therapy as part of the sentence. I thought it was punishment at first.
But now?
I see it as the first real conversation I've ever had with myself. I know you don't owe me anything. Not forgiveness, not closure, not even this letter. But I wanted you to know I was wrong. You didn't take anything from me. I gave it all up. By holding on to hate. Dad may not have been perfect, but he gave us both more than we realized. If you ever find it in your heart to write me back, I'll be here. If not, I understand. I'm trying to be better. Vanessa. I read it 3 times before I set it down. I didn't cry, but I didn't throw it away either. Because, for the first time in a long time, I believed her. Maybe people don't change overnight. Maybe some bridges are burned forever. But that letter, it was something. And maybe, just maybe, she was trying to rebuild. Months passed. Life moved on. I began remodeling the family house. Not because I wanted to erase the past, but because I wanted to give the place a new future. I turned Dad's study into a reading room. His old journals lined the shelves. His typewriter sat on a small desk near the window, just as he left it. Sometimes, I sat there, running my fingers over the keys, listening for the echo of his thoughts. I felt him there. Not in the walls, but in the truth I finally uncovered. One rainy night, I went through the attic again. Something told me I had missed something. Maybe a photo. A keepsake. One last story he never told. And I found it. In a weathered manila envelope buried beneath old tax folders. A small, folded note in my father's handwriting. It read, "If she ever finds this, tell her. No matter what she does, Vanessa is still my daughter." Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, but it does mean setting yourself free. I sat there for a long time, staring at that note. And then I cried. Not out of grief, but release. Because now I understood. Forgiveness wasn't for her. It was for me. The next day, I wrote her back. Vanessa, I read your letter. I don't know what the future holds. But for what it's worth, I believe you're trying. Dad left something behind for you too. A note. He never stopped loving you. Not even when you tried to erase him. And neither have I, not completely. I hope your journey forward is honest and kind. To yourself most of all. Rachel. Weeks later, another letter arrived. No envelope. Just a card. A watercolor of a small home with blooming tulips out front. Inside, in her handwriting. I'm working at a community garden now. I plant tulips because Dad used to say they were your favorite. I think of you when I see them grow. Thank you. That spring, I visited the garden. She wasn't there. But the tulips were. Yellow.
Soft.
Resilient. Just like the truth. Just like healing. Just like love that never dies. Even when it's tested. I walked between the rows, touched the petals gently, and smiled. I wasn't alone. Not anymore.